The wedding night ended in silence. No touch, no words, just the sound of a door closing between them. Eliza Whitmore, 20 years old, sold like currency, married to a man who looked at her like she was paperwork, stood alone in a room too large, too cold, too final. Duke Adrian Blackthorne had made his position clear. This was business, not romance. She was a signature on a contract, nothing more. But contracts can be renegotiated, and some men who build walls do it because they're terrified of what might break through. Stay with me until the end. Like this video and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain came down like punishment. It had been raining for 3 days straight, turning London's cobblestones into black mirrors and its sky into something you couldn't tell apart from the Thames. Eliza stood at the window of her father's townhouse, watching water streak the glass, and thought about drowning. Not literally, she wasn't that dramatic, but there was a kind of drowning that happened on dry land, the kind where you went under slowly, one breath at a time, until you forgot what air tasted like. Eliza, her father's voice. She didn't turn. The carriage is ready. I know. You look beautiful. She did turn then. Richard Whitmore stood in the doorway, gray-haired and sagging at the shoulders like a man who'd been carrying something too heavy for too long. He probably had been. Debt had a weight to it. So did desperation. Do I? Eliza touched the lace at her throat. The dress was expensive, imported French silk, seed pearls sewn by hand, the kind of gown that cost more than most families earned in a year. Adrian had paid for it. He'd paid for everything. The flowers, the cathedral, the musicians, the feast. He'd even paid off her father's creditors, all those angry men with ledgers and lawyers who'd been circling like sharks. All he'd asked for in return was her. You do, her father said quietly. You look like your mother. Eliza's chest tightened. Her mother had been dead 8 years. She'd died slowly, expensively, eating through what little fortune the Whitmores had left. And then she'd died anyway, leaving Eliza with a father who loved her but couldn't protect her, and a future that had narrowed down to one terrible option. Marry well. Marry rich. Marry someone who didn't care if you loved him back. The Duke is a good man, her father tried. You don't know that. He's honorable. He's buying me, father. Eliza's voice came out sharper than she intended. Let's not pretend it's anything else. Richard flinched. She regretted it immediately, but didn't take it back. What was the point? They both knew the truth. The Whitmores were broke, disgraced, one bad season away from debtor's prison. Adrian Blackthorne was one of the wealthiest men in England, a war hero, a duke with land stretching from Yorkshire to the Scottish border. He didn't need a wife. He needed an alliance. And the Whitmores, barely clinging to their title, were just desperate enough to give him one. I'm sorry, her father whispered. Eliza closed her eyes. I know. The carriage ride to the cathedral was a blur. Rain, gray streets, faces in windows. Eliza sat across from her father and felt the minutes ticking down like a countdown. This was it. The last hour of her old life. The last hour she'd be just Eliza, nobody's wife, nobody's obligation. Then the cathedral loomed up out of the rain, stone and stained glass and too many people. And there was no more time. Inside, it was worse. The place was packed. Half of London's aristocracy had shown up, all of them whispering behind gloved hands, all of them watching her like she was a curiosity. The poor Whitmore girl, the one marrying the Ice Duke. That's what they called him. Adrian Blackthorne, Duke of Ravenswood. The Ice Duke. Not because he was cruel, he wasn't, as far as anyone knew, but because he was cold, unreachable. A man who'd come back from the war with medals and a title and a look in his eyes that said he'd left something vital on the battlefield. He didn't attend parties, didn't take mistresses, didn't smile, and now he was getting married. Eliza walked down the aisle on her father's arm and tried not to shake. The music was too loud. The flowers smelled too sweet. And at the end of the aisle, standing perfectly still in a black coat that fit him like armor, was Adrian Blackthorne. He didn't look at her. Not once. Not when she reached the altar. Not when the officiant began to speak. Not even when her father placed her hand in his and stepped back. Adrian's hand was warm. That surprised her. She'd expected cold. Ice. but his fingers were solid and warm and steady, and for half a second she thought maybe. Then he spoke his vows, flat, emotionless, like he was reading a grocery list. Eliza's throat closed up. She forced herself to repeat the words, to promise things she didn't mean, to lie in front of hundreds of people. When it was over, Adrian slipped a ring onto her finger, heavy gold, set with a single black diamond, and finally looked at her. His eyes were gray, storm cloud gray, and completely empty. "Your Grace," he said, formal, distant. Then he turned and walked back down the aisle. Eliza stood there, stunned, until someone nudged her forward. Right. She was supposed to follow. She was his wife now. She was supposed to follow. The reception was held at Blackthorn House, Adrian's London estate. It was massive. 3 stories of pale stone and iron gates with gardens that went on forever. Inside it was all dark wood and marble and paintings of dead blackthorns staring down from the walls. Eliza smiled until her face hurt. She shook hands, accepted congratulations, listened to old women tell her how lucky she was, how handsome the Duke was, how this was such a romantic match. Romantic. She wanted to laugh. Adrian stood across the room, surrounded by men in military uniforms. He looked like he belonged with them, straight-backed, composed, untouchable. He hadn't spoken to her since the cathedral, hadn't even looked at her. "Don't take it personally, dear." Eliza turned. An older woman stood beside her, Lady Pemberton, one of London's most notorious gossips. She smiled like a cat with a canary. "Take what personally?" Eliza asked carefully. "The Duke's, demeanor." Lady Pemberton sipped her champagne. "He's always been like this, ever since the war. Some men come back changed, you know, broken. He doesn't seem broken. Oh, he hides it well. But everyone knows. That business with Captain Hartley's brother." "What business?" Lady Pemberton's eyes gleamed. "You haven't heard?" "Well, I suppose he wouldn't have told you. The Duke doesn't talk about it, but during the war there was an incident, a command decision. Men died. One of them was the younger brother of Captain Hartley, used to be one of Adrian's closest friends. Now Hartley won't even speak to him." Eliza's stomach turned over. "What happened?" "No one knows exactly. It's all military secrets and honor codes. But Hartley blames the Duke, says Adrian got his brother killed." Lady Pemberton leaned closer. "Some say it's why the Duke came back so cold. Guilt, you know. It eats at a man." Before Eliza could respond, a hand touched her elbow. "Adrian." She nearly jumped. "We should greet the remaining guests," he said. "Not a suggestion. A command." Lady Pemberton melted away. Adrian led Eliza through the crowd, his hand barely touching her arm. They smiled, they nodded, they played the part of the happy couple. But when the last guest finally left, when the doors closed and the house fell silent, Adrian's mask didn't slip. He just turned to her and said, "Your rooms are on the 2nd floor, East Wing. Mrs. Davison will show you." Eliza stared at him. "My rooms?" "Yes." "Not our rooms?" Something flickered in his eyes. "This is a marriage of convenience, Miss Whitmore. It's Your Grace now," she said before she could stop herself. "Or did you forget we just got married?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "Your Grace," he corrected, clipped. "This arrangement benefits both our families. You'll have security, status, anything you need. In return, I expect you to fulfill your role as Duchess. Public appearances, social obligations. Nothing more." "Nothing more," Eliza repeated slowly. "Exactly. So this is, what, a business partnership?" "Yes." She felt something sharp and hot rise in her chest. Anger, maybe, or humiliation. "And if I want something more?" "Then you married the wrong man." The words landed like a slap. Adrian held her gaze for one more second, then turned and walked away. His footsteps echoed on the marble floor, growing fainter until a door closed somewhere deep in the house. And Eliza was alone. Mrs. Davison appeared, a stern-faced housekeeper in her 50s, and led Eliza upstairs without a word. The East Wing was beautiful, too beautiful. A sitting room with velvet furniture, a bedroom with a 4-poster bed and silk curtains, a dressing room larger than her father's entire house. Will you need help undressing, Your Grace? Mrs. Davison asked. Eliza shook her head. No, thank you. The housekeeper left. The door clicked shut. Eliza stood in the center of the room and felt the weight of it all crash down. She'd known this marriage would be difficult. She'd known Adrian was cold, distant, damaged, but some small, stupid part of her had hoped. What? That he'd fall in love with her at first sight? That he'd sweep her into his arms and promise her forever? God, she was an idiot. Eliza sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the ring on her finger. The black diamond caught the light, glittering like a piece of night sky. A marriage of convenience, nothing more. She wanted to cry, but crying wouldn't change anything. So instead, she stood up, unpinned her hair, and started unlacing her wedding dress. If this was her life now, she'd survive it. She'd survived worse. The first month was strange. Eliza saw Adrian maybe twice a week, always at formal dinners or public events. He was polite, distant. He'd ask how she was settling in, make small talk about the weather, then retreat back into whatever corner of the house he disappeared to. The staff treated her with cautious respect. Mrs. Davison ran the household with military precision. The cook prepared meals Eliza barely touched. The maids kept her room spotless. It was like living in a museum. Eliza tried to fill her days. She read. She walked the gardens. She wrote letters to her father, carefully avoiding any mention of how lonely she was. But loneliness had a way of seeping in. One evening, she found herself wandering the house. She'd been avoiding it. Blackthorn House was enormous, and most of it felt like Adrian's territory. But tonight, the silence in her rooms had been unbearable. She drifted through empty hallways, past portraits of stern-faced ancestors, until she found a room she hadn't seen before. A study. Dark wood. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. A desk covered in maps and military documents. Adrian's study. Eliza knew she shouldn't go in, but her hand was already on the door. Inside, it smelled like leather and ink. She ran her fingers along the spines of books. Military history, philosophy, strategy. On the desk, there was a half-finished letter. She leaned closer, curious. Looking for something? Eliza spun around. Adrian stood in the doorway, still in his riding coat, hair damp from rain. He didn't look angry, just tired. I'm sorry, Eliza said quickly. I was just snooping, exploring, without permission. Heat crept up her neck. You're right, I shouldn't have. It's fine. Adrian stepped into the room, pulling off his gloves. You're my wife. You have as much right to this house as I do. Eliza blinked. That was the first time he'd acknowledged her as anything more than an inconvenience. I was bored, she admitted. Bored? Yes, there's only so much reading and walking a person can do before they go mad. Adrian almost smiled. Almost. You could redecorate. I don't want to redecorate. I want... She stopped herself. What? Nothing. Say it. Eliza met his eyes. I want to feel like I live here, not like I'm a guest in someone else's house. Something shifted in Adrian's expression. He looked away, jaw working. I know this isn't easy for you. It's not easy for either of us, Eliza said quietly. But we're stuck with each other. We might as well try to be civil. I thought I was being civil. You're being polite. There's a difference. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he crossed to a cabinet, pulled out a bottle of brandy and 2 glasses. He poured without asking if she wanted any, then handed her a glass. To civility, he said. Eliza took the glass. To not murdering each other in our sleep. This time, he did smile. Small, brief, but real. They drank in silence. The brandy burned going down, but Eliza didn't care. It was something. A moment. The first real conversation they'd had since the wedding. Why did you marry me? She asked suddenly. Adrian's smile faded. You know why. I know what people say. That you needed an alliance. That my family's title, even if it's worthless now, gives you political leverage. But I don't know the real reason. That is the real reason. I don't believe you. Adrian set down his glass. It doesn't matter what you believe. It does to me. Why? Because I gave up my entire life for this marriage, Eliza said, voice rising. I gave up any chance at love, at happiness, at a normal future. The least you could do is tell me why. You want the truth? Adrian's voice went cold. Fine. I needed a wife. Someone respectable, controllable, who wouldn't ask questions or make demands. Your father needed money. It was a transaction. That's all. The words stung more than they should have. Controllable, Eliza repeated. Yes? Because you think I'll just sit here quietly and be the perfect duchess while you ignore me? That was the arrangement. Well, the arrangement is miserable. Adrian's eyes flashed. You think I don't know that? Then why? Because I can't give you what you want. The words exploded out of him. He turned away, gripping the edge of the desk. I can't be the husband you're imagining. I can't love you. I can't even pretend to care. So yes, I keep my distance. It's kinder that way. Eliza's heart was pounding. Kinder for who? For both of us. You don't get to decide what's kind for me. Adrian laughed, bitter, harsh. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. No. Why not? Because it's none of your concern. I'm your wife. In name only. Adrian spun back to face her. That's all this is. A name. A title. It doesn't mean anything. It means something to me, Eliza shot back. Then you're a fool. The words hung in the air between them. Eliza set down her glass carefully, hands shaking. I may be a fool, she said quietly, but at least I'm not a coward. Adrian went very still. You want to know what I think? Eliza continued. I think you're terrified. I think something happened during the war, something you can't forgive yourself for, and now you're punishing everyone around you, including me. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? Lady Pemberton told me about Captain Hartley, about his brother. Adrian's face went pale. Get out. What happened, Adrian? Get out. Not until you tell me, I said get out. His voice cracked like a whip. Eliza flinched, but didn't move. Adrian's chest was heaving. His hands were clenched into fists. For a moment, he looked like he might shatter. Then he turned away. Please, he said, quieter. Just go. Eliza wanted to stay, to push, to force him to talk. But something in his voice stopped her. She left the study without another word. Back in her rooms, she paced for hours. Her mind kept replaying the conversation, the anger in Adrian's voice, the pain underneath it. He was hiding something, something that ate at him, and she was going to find out what. The next morning, Eliza woke with a plan. If Adrian wouldn't tell her the truth, she'd find it herself. She started in the library. Blackthorn House had an entire wing dedicated to books, including newspapers dating back decades. Eliza spent 3 days going through them, searching for any mention of Adrian's military service. She found plenty. Captain Adrian Blackthorn, decorated war hero, led successful campaigns in the peninsula, saved an entire regiment during a siege, returned home to inherit the dukedom after his father's sudden death. But there was nothing about the incident Lady Pemberton had mentioned, nothing about Captain Hartley or his brother. Frustrated, Eliza tried a different approach. She started asking the staff careful questions. Most of them shut down immediately, loyal to Adrian, afraid to gossip. But the younger footman Thomas was more willing to talk. The captain, Hartley, he used to visit all the time, Thomas said as he helped her move some furniture in the drawing room. Before the war, him and the Duke were close as brothers, but after they came back, Hartley wouldn't even step foot in the house. Do you know why? Thomas hesitated. There was talk about a battle that went wrong. Men died. Hartley's younger brother was one of them. Some people say the Duke gave a bad order. Some say he didn't have a choice. But Hartley blamed him either way. What do you think happened? I think, Thomas said carefully, the Duke carries it like a stone around his neck. Whatever happened, he's never forgiven himself. That night, Eliza couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Adrian's face when she'd mentioned Hartley, the way he'd shut down, the pain in his voice when he'd yelled at her to leave. A man didn't react like that unless he was drowning in guilt. Around midnight, she gave up on sleep and went downstairs for tea. The kitchen was dark, but there was a light coming from Adrian's study. She should have gone back to her rooms. Instead, she knocked. Silence. Then, "Come in." Adrian was at his desk, still fully dressed despite the late hour. He looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes, hair disheveled like he hadn't slept in days. "I couldn't sleep," Eliza said. "Neither could I." She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "Adrian, I'm sorry." He cut her off, not looking at her. "For last night. I shouldn't have yelled. I pushed too hard. You asked a fair question." He finally met her eyes. "And I was cruel. I'm sorry." Eliza crossed to the desk slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. "Can I ask you something?" Adrian tensed. "If I say no, will you stop?" "Probably not." A ghost of a smile. "Then ask. What happened with Captain Hartley's brother?" The smile vanished. Adrian looked away, jaw tight. "We were outnumbered. I had to make a choice, retreat and save most of the men, or hold position and likely lose everyone. I chose retreat. Hartley's brother was in the rear guard. He didn't make it. That's not your fault. I gave the order. You saved lives. I got a good man killed. You were at war," Eliza said quietly. "People die in war. That doesn't make it your fault." Adrian laughed, hollow, broken. "You sound so sure." "I am sure. You weren't there. You didn't see." His voice cracked. He pressed his hands to his face. "I can still hear the screams." Eliza's chest ached. Without thinking, she reached out and touched his shoulder. Adrian froze. "You can't carry this alone," Eliza said softly. "I have to." "Why?" "Because if I don't, if I let it go, then it means those men died for nothing. They died because there was a war, not because of you. Hartley doesn't see it that way. Hartley is grieving. People need someone to blame when they lose someone." "It doesn't mean he's right." Adrian was silent for a long moment. Then he lowered his hands and looked at her, really looked at her. "Why are you being kind to me?" he asked quietly. "I've done nothing to deserve it." "Because you're my husband," Eliza said, "and I don't think you're the monster you're trying to be." Something raw flickered across his face. "You should hate me." "I don't." "You should." "Well, I'm stubborn." This time, when he smiled, it was real, sad, but real. They stood there for a moment, the silence between them different now, softer. "It's late," Adrian said finally. "You should sleep." "So should you." "I will." They both knew he was lying. Eliza turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Adrian?" "Yes?" "Thank you for telling me." He nodded, not quite meeting her eyes. Eliza left the study and went back to her rooms, her heart heavy but somehow lighter too. She'd seen behind the armor just for a moment, and she wasn't afraid of what she'd found. Over the next few weeks, something shifted. Adrian didn't suddenly become warm or affectionate, but the walls between them started to crack. He joined her for breakfast sometimes, asked her opinion on household matters. Once, he even laughed at something she said, a real laugh, surprised out of him. It was progress. Small, fragile, but real. Then Captain Hartley came to London. Eliza heard about it from the staff first. Whispers in the hallways, the housekeeper's tight expression, Thomas looking nervous. When she asked Adrian about it at dinner, he went very still. "He's attending some military event," Adrian said carefully. "It doesn't concern us." "Adrian, it's fine, Eliza." But it wasn't fine. 2 days later, Eliza was at a charity luncheon when she saw him. Captain James Hartley, tall, dark-haired, with a face carved from anger. He was across the room, talking to a group of officers. When he saw her, his expression turned to ice. He crossed the room deliberately. People moved out of his way. "Your Grace," he said when he reached her. His voice was polite. His eyes were furious. "Captain Hartley," Eliza kept her voice steady. "I've heard a great deal about you." "I'm sure you have." "The Duke's wife." He looked her up and down. "Tell me, does he mention my brother, or has he conveniently forgotten?" Heat flooded Eliza's face. "Captain, my brother was 19 years old," Hartley continued, louder now. People were starting to stare. 19, and your husband left him to die. That's not what happened. You weren't there. Neither were you, or you'd know the truth. Hartley's jaw clenched. The truth is that Adrian Blackthorne is a coward who sacrificed good men to save his own skin. That's a lie. Is it? Then why won't he face me? Why does he hide behind his title and his money and his pretty new wife? Eliza's hands were shaking. Because you're not interested in the truth. You just want someone to blame. I want justice. You want revenge. What I want, Hartley said quietly, dangerously, is for the Duke to admit what he did, to take responsibility, to stop pretending he's some kind of hero when he's just a coward who got my brother killed. He turned and walked away, leaving Eliza standing there, shaking with anger. The entire room was staring. Eliza lifted her chin, grabbed her coat, and left. She went straight to Adrian's study when she got home. He was at his desk, working. Hartley confronted me, she said without preamble. Adrian's pen stopped moving. What did he say? That you're a coward, that you got his brother killed, that you're hiding behind me. Adrian set down the pen carefully. And what did you say? I defended you. You shouldn't have. Someone has to. Eliza, he's wrong, Adrian. You know he's wrong. Do I? Adrian stood, agitated. Maybe he's right. Maybe I am a coward. Stop it. You don't understand what it was like, the choices I had to make. Then explain it to me. I can't. Why not? Because I'm ashamed. The words tore out of him. Because every time I close my eyes, I see their faces. I hear them screaming. And I know that I could have saved them if I'd just been braver, smarter, better. You would have died too, Eliza said fiercely. You and everyone else. Maybe that would have been better. The words landed like stones. Eliza crossed to him, grabbed his face in both hands, and forced him to look at her. Don't you dare, she said. Don't you dare say that. Adrian's eyes were wet. Eliza, you did what you had to do. You saved lives. That matters. It doesn't bring them back. No. But hating yourself won't either. They stood there, inches apart, breathing hard. Then Adrian pulled away. I need to be alone. Adrian, please. Eliza wanted to fight, to push, but she could see the exhaustion in his eyes. So she left. But this wasn't over. Not even close. The morning after Hartley's confrontation, Eliza woke to find Adrian already gone. Not unusual. He'd been disappearing more and more lately, vanishing into his study or riding out before dawn. But today felt different. The house had a tension to it, like the air before a thunderstorm. She found Mrs. Davison in the hallway, directing 2 footmen carrying boxes. Where is the Duke? Eliza asked. The housekeeper's expression was carefully neutral. His Grace left for Ravenswood Estate at first light, Your Grace. He'll be gone approximately 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Eliza's stomach dropped. Did he say why? Estate business. He said you were welcome to accompany him if you wished, but he assumed you'd prefer to remain in London for the season. He'd assumed. He hadn't asked. I see, Eliza said tightly. Thank you, Mrs. Davison. She went back to her rooms and stood at the window, watching rain streak the glass. Again. It was always raining. Adrian had run. That's what this was. She'd gotten too close last night, pushed too hard, and he'd bolted like a fox from hounds. Fine. If he wanted distance, she'd give him distance. But first, she was going to do something he'd hate. She was going to fix this. By noon, Eliza had tracked down Captain Hartley's London address. It wasn't difficult. The man wasn't exactly hiding. He was staying at a modest townhouse near the barracks, the kind of place career soldiers rented when they couldn't afford better. She took a hired carriage, not the Blackthorne coach. No need to announce herself. The housekeeper who answered the door looked skeptical when Eliza gave her name, but she showed her to a small sitting room anyway. I'll see if the captain is receiving visitors. Eliza waited, heart hammering. This was insane. Adrian would be furious, but if she could just talk to Hartley, make him understand. Your Grace. Hartley stood in the doorway, still in his uniform. He looked surprised and deeply unhappy. "Captain Hartley," Eliza said, standing, "thank you for seeing me. I wasn't aware I had a choice." He didn't sit. "What do you want?" "To talk. About my husband." "There's nothing to discuss." "I disagree." Hartley's jaw tightened. "With respect, Your Grace, you don't know what you're talking about. You weren't there. You didn't see—" "You're right," Eliza interrupted. "I wasn't there, but neither were you." "Excuse me?" "You weren't there when the order was given. You weren't there when Adrian had to choose between saving some of his men or losing all of them. You only know what you've been told, what you want to believe." Hartley's face went dark. "My brother wrote me letters. He told me what it was like serving under Blackthorn. The man was reckless. He was doing his job. His job got good men killed." "War gets good men killed," Eliza's voice rose. "That's what war is. Adrian didn't start it. He didn't want it. He just tried to survive it. By sacrificing my brother. By making an impossible choice." Eliza took a breath, forcing herself to stay calm. "Your brother was a soldier. He knew the risks, and I'm sorry, truly sorry, that he didn't come home, but blaming Adrian won't bring him back." "Don't you dare," Hartley said quietly, dangerously. "Don't you dare tell me how to grieve my brother." "I'm not. I'm telling you that destroying my husband won't ease your pain. Your husband destroyed himself. I'm just making sure everyone knows it." The words hung between them. Eliza felt something cold settle in her chest. "What does that mean?" Hartley smiled, sharp, bitter. "It means the truth is coming out. I've been talking to people, other soldiers who served with Blackthorn, men who saw what happened that day, and they're willing to testify." "Testify to what?" "That your husband gave an order that directly led to the deaths of 17 men, that he chose his own safety over theirs, that he's a coward wearing a hero's medals." Eliza's hands clenched into fists. "That's a lie." "Is it? Then why won't he defend himself? Why won't he face me?" "Because he feels guilty. Because he is guilty." "No." Eliza stepped forward. "He feels guilty because he's a good man who takes responsibility for things that weren't his fault. That's the difference between him and you. He carries his grief. You weaponize yours." Hartley's face went white. For a moment, Eliza thought he might hit her. Then he turned away, hands shaking. "Get out." "Captain." "Get out of my house." Eliza wanted to say more, to make him understand, but she could see it was useless. So she left. The carriage ride home was a blur. Eliza's mind was racing. Hartley was gathering testimony against Adrian. He was going to make this public, drag it through every drawing room and newspaper in London. And Adrian wasn't even here to defend himself. Back at Blackthorn House, Eliza paced her sitting room for hours. She couldn't let this happen. She had to do something. But what? Adrian had made it clear he didn't want her help. He'd literally fled to the countryside to avoid her. If she interfered now, he'd see it as a betrayal. But if she didn't interfere, Hartley would destroy him. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. That evening, Eliza sat down and wrote a letter to her father. She needed information, connections, people who might have served with Adrian, anyone who could counter Hartley's narrative. Her father wrote back within 2 days. He didn't have much, but he had a name. Colonel Marcus Webb, retired, living in Bath. He'd commanded the regiment next to Adrian's during the Peninsula Campaign. Eliza packed a bag that night. Mrs. Davison tried to stop her. "Your Grace, it's not proper for you to travel alone. Then send a maid with me." "The Duke wouldn't approve." "The Duke isn't here." Eliza's voice came out sharper than intended. She softened it. "I'm going to Bath for a few days. For my health. The Duke need not know." Mrs. Davison looked deeply unhappy, but she arranged for a maid and a driver. Eliza left before dawn. Bath was smaller than London, prettier, full of old people and invalid chairs. Colonel Webb lived in a tidy house near the Roman baths, with a garden that looked like it got more attention than the interior. He answered the door himself. A broad-shouldered man in his 60s, gray-haired but still military straight. "Colonel Webb," Eliza said. "My name is Eliza Blackthorn. I'm the Duchess of Ravenswood. I was hoping I could speak with you about my husband." Webb's expression didn't change. You'd better come in. His sitting room was sparse. A few chairs, a desk, walls covered in military maps and commendations. No wife, Eliza noted. No personal touches. Tea? Webb asked. No, thank you. He sat across from her, studying her with sharp blue eyes. You're here about the incident. You know about it? Everyone who served in that campaign knows about it. Blackthorn's been carrying it like a cross ever since. Webb leaned back. What do you want to know? The truth. Captain Hartley is claiming my husband got his brother killed through cowardice. Is that what happened? Webb was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. No, that's not what happened. Relief flooded through Eliza. Then what did happen? We were in a bad position, outnumbered 3-1, supplies running low, no reinforcements coming. Blackthorn was acting commander. His superior had taken a bullet to the leg the day before. He had to decide whether to hold ground or retreat. And he chose retreat. After holding for 6 hours, he sent the wounded out first, then the main force, then a rear guard to cover the withdrawal. Young Hartley was in that rear guard. So he volunteered? No, Blackthorn assigned him. Webb's face was grim. That's the part your husband can't forgive himself for. He chose who stayed behind. 17 men. Hartley was one of them. Eliza's throat tightened. How many survived? 3. And Hartley's brother wasn't one of them. No. Eliza closed her eyes. 17 men. Adrian had sent 17 men to almost certain death to save the rest. It was the right call, Webb said quietly. I've gone over it 100 times in my mind. If he'd held position, we would have lost everyone. 300 men. Blackthorn saved 283 lives that day. But he can't see it that way. No. He just sees the 17 he couldn't save. Webb leaned forward. Your husband is one of the best officers I ever served with. Brave, strategic, willing to make the hard calls. But that day broke something in him. He came back different. I know. Do you? Webb's eyes were piercing. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you married a stranger. Eliza met his gaze steadily. Maybe I did. But I'm trying to know him now. Webb studied her for another moment, then nodded. What do you need from me? Hartley is gathering testimony against Adrian. He's going to make this public. I need someone who can tell the truth. Who was actually there. I wasn't on the field that day. I was 2 miles north. But you know what happened. You know the military side of it, and you have credibility. Webb was quiet. If I speak publicly, it will look like the military closing ranks to protect one of its own. Maybe, but it's still the truth. Truth doesn't always matter in these situations. Perception does. And right now, Hartley has the better story. Grieving brother seeking justice for a fallen soldier. No one wants to hear about tactical necessities and acceptable losses. Frustration burned in Eliza's chest. So you're saying there's nothing we can do? I'm saying you need to be smart about this. Webb stood, crossed to his desk, and pulled out a folder. These are my notes from that campaign. Dates, troop movements, casualty reports. If you're going to fight Hartley, you need documentation, facts, not just testimony. He handed her the folder. Eliza opened it, scanning pages of military jargon and numbers. May I keep this? On one condition. What? You get Blackthorn to stop punishing himself. That man has been carrying this guilt for 4 years. It's eating him alive. Someone needs to tell him it wasn't his fault. I've tried. Try harder. Webb's voice was rough. He deserves better than to live the rest of his life hating himself. Eliza clutched the folder. Thank you, Colonel. Don't thank me yet. You've got a fight ahead of you. He had no idea how right he was. Eliza returned to London 2 days later, exhausted but determined. She had documentation. She had a witness, even if Webb was reluctant. She had the truth. Now she just needed Adrian to come home. But when she walked into Blackthorn House, Mrs. Davison met her with a pale face. Your Grace, thank heavens, we've been trying to reach you. Eliza's stomach dropped. What happened? It's the Duke. There's been an incident at Ravenswood Estate. What kind of incident? A fire. In the West Wing. No one was hurt, but Mrs. Davison's voice wavered. Captain Hartley was seen in the area earlier that day. The room tilted. Are you saying Hartley started the fire? Eliza's voice came out too high. I'm saying he was there. And now he's telling people the Duke said it himself. For the insurance money. That's insane. He claims the Duke is financially unstable, that the marriage to you was a desperate attempt to secure funds. Eliza wanted to scream. This was escalating faster than she'd anticipated. Hartley wasn't just attacking Adrian's reputation, he was destroying it systematically. Where's Adrian now? Still at Ravenswood, overseeing repairs. Get me a carriage. Now. Your Grace, perhaps you should wait. Now, Mrs. Davison. The housekeeper fled. Eliza went to her rooms, changed into riding clothes, and grabbed Webb's folder. She was going to Ravenswood. She was going to show Adrian this documentation, and she was going to make him fight back, whether he wanted to or not. The journey to Ravenswood took 8 hours. By the time Eliza's carriage rolled up the long drive, it was past midnight, and she was half dead from exhaustion. But the sight of the estate shocked her awake. It was beautiful. Massive stone manor perched on a hill, surrounded by forests and fields. Even in the darkness, lit only by scattered torches, it looked like something from a painting, and the west wing, the damaged section, was barely touched. Some blackened windows, scaffolding already in place. Not the catastrophe she'd imagined. Adrian was standing in the courtyard, talking to a man in work clothes. He looked up when the carriage approached, and his expression went from surprise to anger in half a second. He strode over as Eliza climbed down. What are you doing here? Saving you from yourself, apparently. She thrust Webb's folder at him. Read this. Adrian didn't take it. Eliza, you shouldn't have come. Hartley is telling people you set that fire. He's claiming you're broke and desperate. He's destroying your reputation piece by piece, and you're just letting it happen. It's not your concern. The hell it isn't. I'm your wife. A wife I didn't ask for help from. The words stung, but Eliza pushed past them. I went to Bath. I found Colonel Webb. He served with you during the Peninsula campaign. He knows what happened that day, and he's willing to testify to the truth. Adrian's face went carefully blank. You had no right. Someone had to do something. So you took it upon yourself to meddle in military affairs you don't understand. I understand that you're being crucified for doing your job. Eliza's voice echoed across the courtyard. The workmen had disappeared. They were alone. I understand that Hartley is using his grief as a weapon, and you're too guilt-ridden to defend yourself. Because I deserve it, Adrian shouted back. I made the call. I sent those men to die. That's on me. You saved 283 lives. I killed 17. You were at war. That doesn't make it easier. Adrian's voice cracked. He turned away, hands in his hair. Do you know what it's like? Knowing that every decision you make might get someone killed? Knowing that you have to weigh lives like they're numbers on a ledger? No, Eliza said quietly. I don't. But I know that destroying yourself won't bring those men back. Maybe not, but at least I'll have paid for it. Paid for what? Surviving? Eliza crossed to him, forced him to look at her. You're not responsible for the war, Adrian. You're not responsible for every death that happened. You did your best in an impossible situation. That's all anyone could ask. My best got people killed. Your best saved hundreds more. Adrian pulled away from her. You don't understand. Then make me understand. Stop shutting me out and talk to me. I can't. Why not? Because if I let myself feel this, if I let myself grieve or rage or break down, I won't be able to put myself back together. The words tore out of him, raw and desperate. I have to stay in control. I have to keep it locked away, because if I don't, everything falls apart. Eliza's eyes stung. Adrian, you should go back to London. No. Eliza, I'm not leaving you. She stepped closer, voice fierce. You can be angry at me. You can hate that I'm here, but I'm not leaving. Adrian stared at her. Something in his expression shifted. Confusion, maybe, or something close to wonder. Why? He asked roughly. Why do you care? Because you're my husband. Because you're drowning, and I'm not going to just stand on the shore and watch. I'm not worth saving. That's not your decision to make. They stood there in the darkness, the burned wing looming behind them, the night air cold and sharp. Then Adrian's shoulders sagged. I don't know how to fight this. Then let me help you. You can't. I already am. Eliza picked up the folder she'd dropped, held it out again. Webb's documentation. Everything from that campaign. Dates, movements, casualty reports. It proves you made the right call. Adrian took the folder slowly, like it might burn him. He opened it, scanned the first few pages. His hands were shaking. This won't change Hartley's mind, he said finally. Maybe not, but it might change everyone else's. And if it doesn't, then we deal with that too. Adrian looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time since the wedding, Eliza saw something other than ice in his eyes. You're stubborn, he said. So are you. This isn't your fight. It is now. Adrian closed the folder, still looking at her. If we do this, if we fight back, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Hartley won't back down easily. I know. He might come after you too. Let him try. A smile ghosted across Adrian's face. Small, exhausted, but real. You're terrifying, you know that? Good. Someone needs to be. The smile faded. Adrian looked back at the damaged wing, jaw tight. The fire wasn't an accident. Someone set it deliberately, and I'm fairly certain it was Hartley. Eliza's blood ran cold. Can you prove it? No, but the timing is suspicious. He was here hours before the fire started. He was seen arguing with one of the groundskeepers. About what? About me. About the war. The groundskeeper said Hartley seemed unstable. Angry. We need to report this. To who? The magistrate? Hartley's a decorated war hero. I'm the Duke everyone thinks is a coward. Who do you think they'll believe? Eliza's mind raced. Then we go around them. We make this public. We tell the truth before Hartley can twist it. That's risky. Everything's risky. Eliza grabbed his hand. But I'd rather fight than hide. Adrian looked down at their joined hands. His thumb brushed over her knuckles. Unconscious. Gentle. All right, he said quietly. We fight. Relief flooded through Eliza. Together? Together. It was a small word, but it felt like a promise. They went inside. Ravenswood's interior was just as impressive as the exterior, all dark wood and tapestries and history. Adrian led her to a study, smaller than the one in London, but just as full of maps and books. He poured them both brandy, without asking. They sat across from each other, and for the first time there was no ice between them. Just two people trying to figure out how to survive the storm. Webb said you've been punishing yourself for 4 years, Eliza said. Adrian's mouth twisted. Webb talks too much. He cares about you. He shouldn't. Why? Because you don't think you deserve it. Adrian didn't answer. He stared into his glass. Eliza leaned forward. Tell me about them. The men who didn't make it. Why? Because you're carrying them alone, and you shouldn't have to. Adrian was quiet for so long Eliza thought he wouldn't answer. Then he started talking. He told her about Hartley's brother, Christopher, 19, who'd lied about his age to enlist. About Sergeant Mills, who had 3 children at home. About Private Davies, who played fiddle around the campfires. He told her their names, all 17 of them. And as he talked, something in him cracked open. His voice roughened, his hands shook. He didn't cry. Adrian didn't seem like someone who knew how, but the pain was there, raw and real. Eliza listened. She didn't interrupt. She didn't offer platitudes. She just listened. When he finally stopped talking, the candles had burned low and the room was full of shadows. Thank you, Adrian said quietly. For what? For hearing me. Eliza reached across the table and took his hand again. I'll always hear you. That's what marriage is supposed to be. Adrian's fingers tightened around hers. I've been a terrible husband. You've been scared. That's not an excuse. No, but it's a reason. She squeezed his hand. We can do better, both of us. Can we? We're already starting to. Adrian looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. I don't deserve you. Stop saying that, it's getting old. This time, his laugh was real. They sat there in the quiet, hands joined across the table, and Eliza felt something shift between them, something fundamental. They were still strangers in a lot of ways, still figuring each other out, but they weren't enemies anymore. They were allies, and maybe, eventually, they could be more. Outside, the wind picked up. Storm clouds gathered on the horizon. The fight with Hartley was far from over, but for the first time, Eliza thought they might actually win. The storm broke 3 days later. Not the weather, though the sky stayed dark and threatening, but the storm Eliza and Adrian had been bracing for. It came in the form of a letter, delivered by express courier to Ravenswood Estate. Adrian read it standing in the study, his face going pale. "What is it?" Eliza asked. He handed her the letter without a word. It was from Hartley's solicitor. Formal, cold. A notice that Captain James Hartley was filing formal charges against Duke Adrian Blackthorne for criminal negligence resulting in the deaths of 17 soldiers, willful destruction of property via arson for profit, and conduct unbecoming an officer. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks from now, in London. Public. "He's actually doing it," Eliza breathed. "I told you he wouldn't back down." Adrian's voice was flat, but his hands were shaking. He turned away, walked to the window. Outside, the grounds of Ravenswood stretched out in shades of gray and green. Eliza's mind was racing. Criminal charges, a public hearing. This wasn't just reputation anymore. This was Adrian's freedom. His title. Everything. "We fight it," she said. "With what? Webb's testimony won't be enough. Not against 17 families who lost sons. Then we find more. There have to be other officers who served with you, other men who know the truth." Adrian shook his head. "Most of them are dead or scattered across the empire, and the ones who are left won't want to get involved. This isn't just about me anymore. It's political. The war is over, but people still need someone to blame for how messy it was. So you're just going to let him destroy you?" "I'm going to face the consequences of my actions." Eliza crossed to him, grabbed his arm, forced him to look at her. "Your action was saving 283 lives. Stop acting like you committed murder. 17 men died because of my order. 17 men died because there was a war." Her voice cracked. "You can't keep punishing yourself for surviving." Adrian pulled away. "You don't understand what it was like. Making that call, looking at their faces and knowing I was sending them to die. You're right, I don't understand, but I understand that if you give up now, Hartley wins. He destroys your life, your reputation, everything you've built. And those 17 men? They died for nothing." That landed. Adrian flinched like she'd struck him. "If you fight," Eliza continued, softer now, "if you stand up and tell the truth, you give their deaths meaning. You show that their sacrifice saved hundreds of others. That's the legacy they deserve. Not this." She gestured at the letter. "Not being used as weapons in Hartley's vendetta." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. "What if I lose? Then we deal with it, together. They could strip my title. Take Ravenswood. I could end up in prison." "I know." "You'd be ruined too. The scandal would follow you." "I don't care." Adrian looked at her like she was speaking a foreign language. "How can you not care?" "Because I married you, for better or worse, remember? I meant those words, even if you didn't." Something raw flickered across his face. "Eliza." A knock on the door interrupted them. Adrian's steward, a thin man named Garrett, entered looking apologetic. "Your Grace, forgive the intrusion, but there's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent." "Who?" "He wouldn't give his name, but he's wearing a military uniform. Officer rank." Adrian and Eliza exchanged glances. "Show him in," Adrian said. Garrett disappeared. A moment later, a man in his 40s entered, dark-haired, weather-beaten, with the rigid posture of career military. He looked familiar, but Eliza couldn't place him. Recognition dawned in Adrian's eyes. "Lieutenant Morrison?" The man nodded. "Major now, actually. Been a while, Blackthorne." 4 years. Adrian's voice was cautious. "What are you doing here?" Morrison glanced at Eliza. Is she my wife? You can speak freely. Morrison shifted uncomfortably. I heard about Hartley's charges, thought you should know. He's been approaching other survivors, men who served in that campaign, offering them money to testify against you. Eliza's stomach dropped. He's bribing witnesses? Not in so many words, but he's promising compensation for their testimony, framing it as justice for fallen comrades. Morrison's mouth twisted. Some of the lads are desperate enough to take it. How many? Adrian asked quietly. At least 6 that I know of, maybe more. Adrian turned away, jaw clenched. But here's the thing, Morrison continued. Most of us who were actually there, we know what really happened. Hartley's twisting the story, making it sound like you abandoned those men when the truth is you held position for 6 hours against impossible odds. What? Why are you telling me this? Adrian asked. Because I owe you my life. We all do. If you hadn't called that retreat when you did, none of us would have made it out. Morrison straightened. I'm willing to testify. At the hearing, tell them what actually happened. Hope flared in Eliza's chest. Would others? Maybe, if someone asked them, but a lot of the lads are scattered, different postings, different counties. It'd take time to track them down. We have 2 weeks, Eliza said. Morrison winced. That's not much time. It's what we have. Adrian was still facing the window. Morrison, I appreciate this, but I can't ask you to risk your career. You're not asking, I'm offering. Morrison's voice was firm. You were a good officer, Blackthorne. One of the best. What Hartley's doing, it's not justice, it's revenge, and I won't stand by and watch it happen. Adrian turned, and Eliza saw his throat work. Thank you. Morrison nodded. I'll start reaching out to the others. See who's willing to come forward. After Morrison left, Adrian sank into a chair like his strings had been cut. This changes things, Eliza said. Maybe, Adrian rubbed his face, or maybe Hartley's bribes will be more convincing than the truth. Stop it. Stop assuming the worst. I'm being realistic. You're being defeatist. Eliza sat across from him. We have witnesses now. Real ones. People who were actually there. That's more than we had this morning. It's still not enough. Then we make it enough. We find every soldier who served with you. We get their testimony. We build a case so strong Hartley can't tear it down. Adrian looked at her, something like wonder in his eyes. When did you become so fierce? When I married a man too stubborn to save himself. This time he almost smiled. They spent the rest of the day planning. Adrian made lists of names, soldiers he remembered, officers who'd served alongside him. Eliza wrote letters, drafted questions, organized everything into something resembling a strategy. It felt good to have a purpose, to be doing something instead of just waiting for disaster. That night, over a late dinner, Adrian was quieter than usual. What are you thinking? Eliza asked. He set down his fork. That I don't deserve your help. We've been over this. No, I mean it. You could walk away from this. Go back to London, distance yourself from the scandal. No one would blame you. I would blame me. Why? Eliza met his eyes. Because somewhere between the wedding and now, you stopped being just a contract to me. Adrian went very still. What am I then? I don't know yet, but I want to find out. The air between them shifted, charged. Adrian's gaze dropped to her mouth, then back to her eyes. Eliza! A crash from outside made them both jump. Adrian was on his feet instantly, moving to the window. Eliza followed. The gardens were lit by torches, and in the flickering light she could see figures moving. 3 of them, spreading something on the ground near the east wing. What are they? Eliza started. Then she smelled it. Oil. Get back, Adrian said sharply. He was already moving, grabbing his coat, heading for the door. Eliza followed despite his order. Adrian, wait. He didn't wait. He was out the door and running across the courtyard before she could stop him. Eliza hiked up her skirts and ran after him. By the time she reached the east wing, Adrian had confronted the figures. They'd scattered when he'd shouted, but one had been too slow. A young man, maybe 20, reeking of lamp oil. Adrian had him by the collar, slammed against the wall. Who sent you? Adrian's voice was deadly calm. The young man struggled. I don't know what you're talking about. You're pouring oil on my property. Either you're an arsonist or you're working for someone. Which is it? I wasn't going to light it. Who? Sent you. The young man's eyes darted around wildly. Then his gaze landed on something behind Adrian, and his face went pale. Adrian turned. Hartley stood at the edge of the gardens, illuminated by torchlight. He wasn't alone. He had 6 men with him, all wearing military uniforms. Let him go, Blackthorn, Hartley said. Adrian's grip tightened. You sent them to burn my house. I sent them to prove a point. By committing arson? By showing everyone what kind of man you really are. Hartley stepped closer. You'll do anything to preserve your reputation, including setting fires and blaming innocent men. That's insane, is it? You did it before, during the war, sacrificed good men to save your own skin. Why wouldn't you do it again? Adrian released the young man, who stumbled away. I never sacrificed anyone. 17 men might disagree, if they were alive to do so. I made a tactical decision that saved hundreds. You made a cowardly decision that got my brother killed. Hartley's composure cracked. And now you're hiding behind your title and your money, pretending you're the victim. I'm not hiding from anything. Then face me. Really face me. Not in some courtroom with lawyers and judges. Here. Now. Adrian's hands clenched into fists. What are you suggesting? A duel. The word hung in the air like poison. Eliza's blood turned to ice. No. Hartley ignored her. You and me. Pistols at dawn. Winner takes all. You win, I drop the charges. I win. He smiled, cold and sharp. Well, problem solved either way. Dueling is illegal, Eliza said, voice shaking. So is arson. So is murder. Hartley's eyes never left Adrian. What do you say, Blackthorn? Are you brave enough to face me without your lawyers? Adrian's jaw was tight. This won't bring your brother back. No, but it might give me peace. Or it might make you a murderer. I can live with that, can you? The men with Hartley shifted, hands on their weapons. The young man who'd been spreading oil had fled. The night air smelled like smoke and violence. Eliza grabbed Adrian's arm. Don't do this. He's trying to provoke you. I know what he's doing. Then don't give him what he wants. Adrian looked down at her. Something in his expression made her chest ache. What if he's right? About what? About me being a coward. What if I've been hiding behind my title all this time? You haven't. I let good men die, Eliza. I made the call. Maybe I deserve. Stop it. Her voice cracked. You don't deserve to die. You don't deserve any of this. But they did? Those 17 men deserve to die? That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? Eliza's throat was tight. I'm saying that throwing your life away won't fix anything. It won't bring them back. It won't ease your guilt. It'll just make everything you've suffered meaningless. Adrian touched her face. Gentle. Final. I'm sorry. Then he turned to Hartley. Tomorrow morning, the North Field. Pistols. No! Eliza grabbed for him, but Morrison appeared from somewhere and held her back. Your Grace, don't... She fought against his grip, but Morrison was stronger. Adrian, don't do this. Adrian didn't look back. He walked toward the house with Hartley's laughter following him. Morrison released Eliza once they were inside. She rounded on him. Stop him! I can't. Once a challenge is issued, I don't care about honor codes. He's going to get himself killed. Morrison's face was grim. Maybe, but he's made his choice. Then I'll unmake it. Eliza pushed past him, running for the study. Adrian was there, at his desk, pulling out a wooden case. Inside were 2 dueling pistols, old but well-maintained. Adrian, please, go to bed, Eliza. I'm not leaving you. This doesn't concern you. The hell it doesn't! She slammed the case shut before he could take the pistols. You're my husband. You think I'm just going to stand by while you commit suicide? It's not suicide, it's accountability. It's martyrdom, and it's selfish. Adrian's head snapped up. Selfish? Yes! You're so busy punishing yourself that you won't even consider the people who need you alive. Morrison. Webb. Me. You don't need me. That's not your decision to make. I've already made it. Adrian's voice was quiet, firm. Tomorrow morning, I face Hartley. If I win, the charges are dropped. If I don't, you'll be free of me. Either way, this ends. Eliza felt tears burning her eyes. What if I don't want to be free of you? Adrian went very still. What? You heard me. The words came out broken. I don't want you to die. I don't want this marriage to end. I want... She stopped, struggling for breath. I want a chance. To know you. To build something real. But I can't do that if you're dead. Adrian stared at her. Eliza, I know you don't love me. I know this started as a transaction, but it doesn't have to stay that way. She stepped closer. We could have something if you just let yourself try. You deserve better than me. I deserve a husband who's alive. The shout echoed through the study. Adrian's face crumpled. He reached for her, pulled her against him. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Eliza clutched his coat, breathing hard. Then don't do this, please. I have to. Why? Because if I don't face him now, I'll be running for the rest of my life, and I'm tired of running. He was warm and solid and real, and Eliza wanted to hold on so tight he couldn't leave. But she could feel his resolve. It was as unyielding as stone. I can't lose you, she whispered. Adrian's arms tightened. You won't. You can't promise that. I'm a decent shot, and Hartley's angry. Anger makes people sloppy. That's not funny. I'm not trying to be funny. Eliza pulled back enough to look at him. His eyes were storm gray and determined and terrified all at once. If you die, she said carefully, I will never forgive you. Fair enough. She wanted to argue more, to scream, to rage, to lock him in a room until he came to his senses, but she could see it wouldn't work. So instead she kissed him. It was desperate and clumsy and tasted like salt from tears she didn't remember shedding. Adrian froze for half a second, then kissed her back, fierce and aching and full of everything he couldn't say. When they broke apart, they were both breathing hard. Don't die, Eliza whispered against his mouth. I'll try my best. It wasn't enough, but it was all she had. The night passed in agonizing slowness. Eliza sat in Adrian's study while he cleaned the pistols, checked the mechanisms, went through all the rituals of preparing for a duel. Morrison arrived around midnight with a doctor, required by tradition, though the word made Eliza's stomach turn. Your Grace, the doctor said to Eliza, perhaps you should retire. I'm staying. No one argued. At 4 a.m, Adrian finally spoke. You should get some sleep. So should you. I won't sleep tonight. Then neither will I. He looked at her, really looked at her, and something soft crossed his face. Stubborn. You mentioned that before. It bears repeating. They sat in silence as the hours crawled by. Outside, the sky began to lighten. Gray dawn crept across the estate. At 5:30, Morrison stood. It's time. Adrian rose, shrugging into his coat. He looked calm, too calm. Eliza stood too, legs shaking. Adrian, he crossed to her, cupped her face in his hands. Whatever happens, know this. These last few weeks, getting to know you, seeing you fight for me when I wouldn't fight for myself. His voice roughened. It's been the best part of my life in 4 years. Eliza's vision blurred. Don't say goodbye. I'm not. I'm saying thank you. He kissed her forehead. Then he turned and walked out. Eliza, Morrison, and the doctor followed. The north field was empty except for Hartley and his seconds. The grass was wet with dew. Fog hung low over the ground. Hartley was already there, pistol in hand. He looked haggard, like he hadn't slept either. The two men faced each other. Morrison stepped forward to lay out the rules. 20 paces, turn on my mark, 1 shot each. If both parties survive and honor is satisfied, the duel ends. Understood? Adrian nodded. Hartley said nothing. Morrison handed Adrian his pistol. The weight of it seemed to settle something in him. His expression went distant, cold. The officer he'd been during the war. They stood back to back. Eliza couldn't breathe. Begin, Morrison said. They started walking. 1 pace, 2, 3. Eliza's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. 10 paces. 15. This was insane. This was medieval. This was going to end in blood and tragedy. And 20 paces. Turn! Both men spun. 2 shots cracked through the morning air, impossibly loud. Eliza screamed. Both men were still standing. Then Hartley staggered. His pistol dropped from his hand. Red bloomed across his shoulder. Adrian lowered his weapon. "You shot me," Hartley said, sounding dazed. "You challenged me. You shot me in the shoulder, not the heart. I'm not a murderer." Hartley's legs gave out. He fell to his knees, clutching his shoulder. His seconds rushed forward. The doctor moved to help, but Hartley waved him away. He was staring at Adrian with something like shock. "Why?" Hartley asked. "Why didn't you kill me?" Adrian's face was unreadable. "Because your brother's death wasn't murder, and neither will yours be." He turned and walked away. Eliza ran to him, grabbed his arm. "Are you hurt?" "No." "He could have killed you, but he didn't." Adrian's hands were shaking now. The adrenaline was crashing. Eliza could see him starting to break. "Inside," she said. "Now." Morrison helped her get Adrian back to the house. They made it to the study before Adrian's legs gave out. He sank into a chair, dropping his head into his hands. "I shot him," he said. "You had to." "I shot him." Eliza knelt in front of him, took his face in her hands. "Adrian, look at me." He did. His eyes were wild. "You're alive," she said. "You're alive, and it's over." "It's not over. It is over." Morrison spoke from the doorway. "I'll make sure of it." Hartley issued the challenge. He lost. Honor is satisfied. If he tries to pursue the charges now, he'll be laughed out of court. Adrian looked up. "You're certain?" "As certain as I can be." Morrison's expression softened. "You did well, Blackthorne. That was a good shot. Clean, non-lethal, shows restraint. I didn't want to kill him." "I know. That's why you won." Morrison left them alone. Eliza and Adrian sat in the quiet study as dawn light filtered through the windows. Outside, she could hear voices. The doctor tending to Hartley, his seconds helping him away. It was over. The duel was over. But Eliza had a sinking feeling that the real fight was just beginning. Because Hartley was wounded, humiliated, and angrier than ever. And angry men were dangerous. Hartley didn't leave quietly. The morning after the duel, word spread through London like wildfire. A duke and a captain had faced each other at dawn. Blood had been spilled. Honor supposedly satisfied. But the whispers weren't about honor. They were about scandal. Eliza heard about it from Mrs. Davison, who'd returned from the market with her face pinched tight. The staff had been talking. The neighbors had been talking. Half of London society was discussing whether Adrian was a hero for showing restraint or a coward for not finishing what he'd started. "They're saying he missed on purpose," Mrs. Davison reported, wringing her hands, "that he was too afraid to actually kill Captain Hartley." Eliza set down her tea carefully. "He didn't miss. He aimed for the shoulder deliberately." "I know that, Your Grace, but people will say what they want to say." And they did. Over the next 3 days, the narrative twisted itself into knots. Some claimed Adrian had cheated. Others said Hartley had been drunk. A few even suggested the whole thing had been staged for publicity. The truth, that Adrian had chosen mercy over murder, got lost in the noise. Adrian himself seemed unbothered. He spent his days at Ravenswood, overseeing repairs to the fire-damaged wing, meeting with tenants, acting like nothing had happened. But Eliza saw the tension in his shoulders, the way he flinched whenever hoofbeats approached the estate. He was waiting for the other shoe to drop. It dropped on the 4th day. A letter arrived from Hartley's solicitor. Despite the duel, despite the so-called satisfaction of honor, Hartley was proceeding with the formal charges. The hearing was still scheduled. Nothing had changed except now Hartley could claim Adrian had tried to kill him to silence the accusations. "He's insane," Morrison said when he read the letter. He'd stayed at Ravenswood, helping Adrian prepare. "The duel should have ended this." "It would have," Adrian said quietly, "if Hartley wanted justice. But he doesn't. He wants me destroyed." Eliza paced the study, mind racing. They had 10 days until the hearing. Morrison had reached out to 6 other soldiers who'd served in that campaign, but only 3 had agreed to testify. The others were too afraid of retribution or too scattered across the country to make it to London in time. 3 witnesses against however many Hartley had bribed. It wasn't enough. "We need something else," Eliza said. "Something that can't be disputed or twisted. Hard evidence." "Like what?" Adrian asked. "The military records are sealed. The official reports are classified. All we have is testimony." "Then we get the records unsealed." Morrison shook his head. "That would require approval from the War Office. They won't grant it for a civilian inquiry." "What if it's not a civilian inquiry?" Eliza turned to face them. "What if we make this a military matter?" Adrian frowned. "How?" "Hartley is accusing you of conduct unbecoming an officer. That's a military charge, isn't it? Doesn't that give the military jurisdiction?" Morrison's eyes widened. "She's right. If we can get the case transferred to a military tribunal instead of civilian court, they'd have access to the sealed records," Adrian finished. "They could review the actual orders, the tactical situation, everything. And military tribunals are less susceptible to public pressure," Morrison added. "They deal in facts, not gossip." Hope flickered in Eliza's chest. "How do we make that happen?" Morrison rubbed his jaw. "We'd need someone high-ranking to petition for the transfer. Someone with influence in the War Office." "Colonel Webb?" Eliza suggested. "He's retired. Doesn't have the pull anymore." Morrison paused. "But I know someone who does. General Marcus Ashford. He commanded the entire Peninsula campaign. If anyone can get those records unsealed, it's him." Adrian's face had gone very still. "Ashford won't help me." "Why not?" "Because I served under his command when those men died. If the records show I made the wrong call, it reflects badly on him too. He'll want this buried, not examined." "Unless we convince him otherwise," Eliza said. Adrian looked at her. "How do you propose we do that?" "By telling him the truth. That this isn't about one bad decision, it's about clearing the names of everyone who served in that campaign. If Hartley succeeds in painting you as incompetent, it taints the entire military. Shows the public that their war heroes were actually just reckless officers getting men killed." Morrison whistled low. "That might work. Ashford's obsessed with the military's reputation. If we frame this as defending the honor of the campaign, he might actually listen," Adrian said slowly. "It's worth trying," Eliza pressed. "What do we have to lose?" Adrian met her eyes. Something in his expression shifted, resignation giving way to determination. "All right, we try." They left for London the next morning. The journey took most of the day, the carriage rattling over rough roads while Eliza rehearsed arguments in her head. Adrian sat across from her, silent and tense. "What if he says no?" Adrian asked finally. "Then we find another way." "There might not be another way." Eliza leaned forward. "Adrian, look at me." He did. "We're not giving up. I don't care if Ashford says no, or if the War Office refuses, or if every door gets slammed in our faces. We keep fighting. Understand?" A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. "When did you become so ruthless?" "When I married you." This time, the smile was real. They reached London after dark, going straight to Blackthorn House. Eliza had sent word ahead, so Mrs. Davison had the house opened and ready. But the moment they walked through the door, Eliza felt the wrongness. Too quiet. Too still. "Your Grace," Mrs. Davison appeared, wringing her hands. We had visitors." Adrian went rigid. "What kind of visitors?" "Men. Looking for evidence of the arson. They searched the house. I tried to stop them, but they had papers from the magistrate." "Did they take anything?" "Your desk was gone through. Some documents are missing." Adrian's face went pale. He strode toward his study. Eliza followed. The room had been ransacked. Drawers pulled open, papers scattered across the floor. Adrian's desk, usually meticulous, looked like a storm had hit it. "What were they looking for?" Eliza asked. Adrian was scanning the mess, checking drawers, pulling books off shelves. "Financial records, correspondence, anything that could be used against me." "Did they find it?" "I don't know. I kept most sensitive documents locked." He stopped, pulled open a drawer. Empty. "The ledgers." They took the estate ledgers. Eliza's stomach sank. Why would they want those? To prove I'm financially desperate, that I had motive to set the fire for insurance money. Adrian's jaw clenched. Hartley's building a case, not just about the war, about everything. Morrison appeared in the doorway. We need to move fast. If they're gathering evidence, the hearing could be moved up. How soon? Days, maybe less. Adrian looked at the destroyed study, then at Eliza. We see Ashford tomorrow, first thing. That night, Eliza couldn't sleep. She lay in her room, still in the east wing, still separate from Adrian, and listened to the house settle around her. Somewhere below, Adrian was probably doing the same thing, lying awake, bracing for disaster. She should stay in her room, should let him have his space. Instead, she got up. She found him in the library, still dressed, reading military strategy books by candlelight. He looked up when she entered. Can't sleep either? He asked. No. Want some company in your insomnia? Eliza sat beside him on the sofa. What are you reading? Clausewitz, on war. He closed the book. Seemed appropriate. Finding any good strategies? A few, though most of them involve having a larger army, which we don't. We have the truth. That's worth something. Adrian looked at her, really looked at her. You have more faith in the truth than I do. Someone has to. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The candles burned low. Outside, London slept. I've been thinking, Adrian said finally, about what you said, that we could have something real. Eliza's heart stumbled. And? I want that too. I'm just... He stopped, struggling for words. I'm not good at this. At being close to someone. At letting someone in. I noticed. That surprised a laugh out of him. Fair. But you're trying, Eliza said softly. That's what matters. Adrian reached for her hand, threaded his fingers through hers. If this all falls apart, if I lose everything, I need you to know something. Don't... Let me say this. His grip tightened. These weeks with you have been... They've reminded me what it feels like to be human. Not just a title or a soldier or a collection of mistakes, just a person. And I'm grateful for that, even if everything else goes to hell. Eliza's throat was tight. Nothing's going to hell. You can't promise that. Watch me. Adrian smiled, sad and fond. Then he leaned in and kissed her, slow, deliberate, like he was memorizing the taste of her. When they broke apart, Eliza was breathless. Come to bed with me, she said. Adrian froze. Eliza. Not for... I just mean... She felt heat creep up her neck. I don't want to sleep alone tonight. And I don't think you do either. Something vulnerable flickered across his face. Are you sure? Yes. He stood, pulling her to her feet. They climbed the stairs together, hands linked. At her door, Adrian hesitated. I'm a terrible bedmate, he warned. I have nightmares. I wake up fighting. I can handle it. They went inside. Eliza changed behind her screen while Adrian turned down the lamps. When she emerged in her nightgown, he was sitting on the edge of the bed, looking lost. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Neither do I. That's not comforting. We'll figure it out together. They climbed into bed, awkward at first, neither sure where to put their limbs, but eventually they settled, Adrian's arm around her waist, Eliza's head on his chest. His heart was beating too fast. Relax, she murmured. I'm trying. Try harder. He huffed a laugh. Slowly, gradually, she felt the tension drain out of him. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For not giving up on me. Eliza pressed a kiss to his collarbone. Never. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, holding on tight. Morning came too soon. They dressed in silence, both bracing for what was ahead. Morrison met them downstairs with grim news. Ashford's agreed to see you, but only for 20 minutes, and he's not happy about it. When? Adrian asked. Within the hour. They took a carriage to Ashford's London residence, a stately townhouse in Mayfair. A butler showed them to a study where General Marcus Ashford sat behind a massive desk, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. He was in his 60s, broad-shouldered despite his age, with iron gray hair and a face that had probably never smiled in its life. "Blackthorn," he said. No warmth. "Morrison. And this must be the new Duchess." Eliza curtsied. "General?" Ashford gestured for them to sit. "You have 15 minutes. Make it count." Adrian didn't waste time. He laid out the situation, Hartley's charges, the upcoming hearing, the need for military records to be unsealed. Ashford listened without interrupting. When Adrian finished, the general leaned back in his chair. "No," he said. Eliza's stomach dropped. "Sir," Morrison started, "the answer is no. I'm not unsealing classified military records for a civilian pissing match." "This isn't a pissing match," Adrian said tightly. "This is about the truth." "The truth?" Ashford's voice was sharp. "The truth is that war is messy. People die. Officers make hard calls. Unsealing those records won't change that. It'll just give the public ammunition to second-guess every decision made during the campaign." "Hartley is already doing that," Eliza said. Ashford's eyes cut to her. "With respect, Your Grace, this is a military matter." "Then treat it like one." Eliza didn't flinch. "Transfer the case to a military tribunal. Review the evidence properly. Stop letting a grieving brother turn this into a circus. And if the tribunal finds Blackthorn was at fault, then he'll accept the consequences," Eliza said. "But at least it'll be based on facts, not lies." Ashford studied her. "You're very certain of your husband's innocence." "I'm certain that he deserves a fair hearing." "Life isn't fair, Your Grace, especially not in war." "I know that," Eliza said quietly. "But justice should be." Something shifted in Ashford's expression. He turned to Adrian. "Why didn't you defend yourself 4 years ago, when Hartley first started making accusations?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "Because I felt guilty. I still do." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I have." Ashford was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, walked to the window. "I remember that day. I was 3 miles east coordinating supply lines. When the reports came in about your retreat, I thought you'd panicked, lost your nerve." Adrian flinched. "But then I saw the casualty numbers," Ashford continued. "You saved nearly 300 men. The tactical assessment I read later confirmed you'd made the only viable call." He turned back. "So why let Hartley destroy you for it?" "Because 17 families lost sons because of my order," Adrian said. They deserve the truth," Ashford interrupted. "Not some sanitized version where everyone's a hero. War killed those men, not you." "Then help me prove it," Adrian said. Ashford returned to his desk, sat, steepled his fingers. "If I do this, if I petition for a tribunal, it will open up the entire campaign to scrutiny. Every decision, every casualty, including mine." "I know." "And if the tribunal finds you negligent, I won't protect you. You'll face the full consequences." "I understand." Ashford looked at Morrison. "You're willing to testify?" "Yes, sir." "And you believe Blackthorn acted appropriately?" "Without question, sir." Ashford's gaze moved to Eliza. "What about you, Your Grace? Are you prepared for what might come out in a military tribunal? The details can be unpleasant." "I don't care about unpleasant," Eliza said. "I care about the truth." Ashford almost smiled. "You picked a fierce one, Blackthorn. I'm beginning to realize that." The general pulled out a sheet of paper and began writing. "I'll petition the War Office today. With my rank and record, they'll approve it. The tribunal will convene in 1 week." Relief crashed over Eliza. "Thank you, General." "Don't thank me yet. This could still go badly." "But at least it'll be fair," Adrian said. "Fair." Ashford handed him the petition. "War's taught me that fair is a luxury, but in this case, I suppose we can try." They left Ashford's residence in a daze. Morrison was grinning. "He said yes." "I can't believe he actually said yes." "He didn't just say yes," Eliza corrected. "He's going to make sure it happens." Adrian was quiet, clutching the petition like a lifeline. Back at Blackthorn House, they sent word to the other witnesses. Morrison began coordinating testimony. Eliza started drafting a timeline of events, organizing everything they had. For the first time, it felt like they might actually win. But 2 days later, Hartley made his move. Eliza was reading in the drawing room when Mrs. Davison rushed in, face white. "Your Grace, you need to see this." She handed Eliza a newspaper. The headline made her blood run cold. Duke's Dark Past. Military Tribunal reveals pattern of reckless command. The article was brutal. It claimed Adrian had a history of dangerous decisions, citing 3 other incidents during the war where men under his command had died. It painted him as a glory-seeking officer who valued victory over soldiers' lives. None of it was true, but it was published in London's most widely read paper. "Where did this come from?" Eliza demanded. "I don't know, Your Grace, but it's in every paper in the city." Adrian appeared in the doorway, holding his own copy. His face was stone. "Hartley's done his research," he said. "These incidents, they're not real, are they?" "They're real, but they're being twisted." Adrian sat heavily. "The first one. 3 men died in an ambush. We were outnumbered. I called for a tactical retreat, saved the rest of the unit, but those 3 didn't make it out. That's not reckless. The second incident, a supply convoy was attacked. I sent reinforcements, but we arrived too late. 5 men dead. That's not your fault. And the third, a night raid went wrong. 2 casualties." Adrian's voice was flat. "All of them true. All of them unavoidable. But strung together like this, it looks like I'm incompetent." Eliza's hands clenched on the paper. "We need to respond. Publicly." "How?" "Anything we say will sound defensive." "Then we don't defend, we attack." Eliza stood. "We tell your side of the story, all of it. We give the paper something they can't ignore." Morrison appeared, also holding a newspaper. "She's right. We need to control the narrative before Hartley does." "How do you propose we do that?" Adrian asked. Eliza's mind was racing. Then it clicked. "A public statement, not to the courts, to the people. We hold a gathering, invite the press, military officers, anyone who wants to hear the truth. We present the facts, the documentation, the witnesses. We make it impossible for Hartley to keep lying." Adrian shook his head. "That's risky. If it goes wrong, it won't. You can't know that." "Then we make sure it doesn't." Eliza grabbed his hands. "Adrian, hiding hasn't worked. Running hasn't worked. It's time to face this head on." Morrison was nodding. "A public forum. We could hold it at the officers' club. Neutral ground. High visibility." "And if Hartley shows up to disrupt it?" Adrian asked. "Then let him," Eliza said fiercely. "Let him rant and rage. Let everyone see what this really is. A vendetta, not justice." Adrian looked between them. Eliza could see him weighing it, calculating risks. Finally, he nodded. "All right, we do it." Morrison clapped him on the shoulder. "I'll start reaching out. We can have something organized in 3 days." 3 days, Adrian repeated. "That doesn't give us much time." "Then we'd better get to work," Eliza said. The next 72 hours were a blur. Morrison contacted every officer he could find who'd served with Adrian. Eliza wrote and rewrote Adrian's statement, honing it until every word counted. They gathered documents, testimonies, anything that could support their case. The Officers' Club agreed to host, reluctantly, but they agreed. Word spread fast. By the second day, half of London knew about the public forum. Some people called it brilliant. Others called it desperate. Hartley called it a circus. He published another article, this one claiming Adrian was trying to manipulate public opinion before the tribunal, that he was using his title and wealth to buy sympathy. Eliza read it and threw the paper across the room. "He's terrified," she said. Adrian looked up from his notes. "What?" "Hartley. He's terrified we're going to win. That's why he's escalating. He knows if we get the truth out, his whole case falls apart. Or he's confident enough in his lies that he doesn't care." "No." Eliza crossed to Adrian, took his face in her hands. "Listen to me. We're going to walk into that forum tomorrow and tell your truth. And people will listen. Because truth is louder than lies." "You really believe that?" "I have to. Otherwise, what's the point?" Adrian pulled her close, rested his forehead against hers. "I don't deserve you." "Stop saying that." It's true. It's really not. They stayed like that for a long moment, drawing strength from each other. The day of the forum arrived gray and cold. Eliza dressed carefully, a deep blue gown that made her look both dignified and approachable. Adrian wore his military uniform, the one he hadn't touched in 4 years. It still fit perfectly. They arrived at the officers' club to find it packed. Military officers, journalists, curious members of society, all crammed into the main hall. Morrison had arranged for a raised platform at one end, and standing near the back, face twisted with barely contained fury, was Hartley. Eliza's stomach clenched. He came. Good, Adrian said. Let him hear this. They took their positions on the platform. Morrison introduced them, his voice carrying across the hall. Then Adrian stepped forward. The room went silent. 4 years ago, Adrian began, his voice steady, I made a decision that saved 283 lives and cost 17. I've carried the weight of those 17 deaths every day since. But I won't let that grief be weaponized into something it's not. He spoke for 20 minutes. He told them about the tactical situation, the impossible odds, the choice he'd had to make. He didn't shy away from the pain or the guilt, but he also didn't apologize for doing his job. When he finished, Morrison presented the documentation, Webb's analysis, the military reports, testimony from the 3 soldiers who'd agreed to speak. The crowd was riveted. Then Morrison opened the floor to questions. A journalist in the front row stood. Your Grace, Captain Hartley claims you acted out of cowardice. How do you respond? I respond by pointing to the 283 men who made it home to their families because of that decision, Adrian said. Cowardice would have been holding position out of pride and watching everyone die. Another question. What about the other incidents mentioned in the papers? Adrian addressed each one, calmly, factually, stripping away the sensationalism and laying bare the truth. Eliza watched the crowd's expression shift, skepticism giving way to understanding, anger softening into sympathy. Then Hartley pushed his way to the front. This is propaganda, he shouted. You're all being manipulated by a man who got my brother killed. The room erupted. Adrian held up a hand. Let him speak. Hartley's eyes widened, like he hadn't expected that. You want to speak? Adrian said quietly. Then speak. Tell everyone here what you think happened. Hartley climbed onto the platform, shaking with rage. You abandoned them. You left my brother and 16 other good men to die while you ran like a coward. I called a retreat after holding position for 6 hours against 3-to-1 odds, Adrian said. I sent the wounded out first, then the main force. The rear guard knew the risks. Your brother volunteered for it. Liar. It's in the records. Adrian gestured to Morrison, who held up the document. Christopher Hartley volunteered for rear guard duty. It's documented in the after-action report. Hartley's face went white. That can't be... It's signed by 2 witnesses, including your brother's commanding officer. The room was dead silent. Hartley stared at the document like it was a snake. Why would he... Because he was brave, Adrian said gently. Because he understood what needed to be done, and he stepped up. That's who your brother was. A hero, not a victim. Hartley's face crumpled. The rage drained out of him, leaving only grief. He was 19, Hartley whispered. I know. He should have come home. I know. I'm sorry. Hartley sank to his knees on the platform, broken, sobbing. Adrian knelt beside him. Your brother's death wasn't meaningless. He saved lives. That matters. It doesn't bring him back. No, but neither does destroying me. Hartley looked up, tears streaming down his face. I just wanted someone to blame. I know, but it wasn't my fault, and it wasn't yours. It was war. The words hung in the air. Then Hartley broke down completely. Morrison helped him off the platform. The crowd was silent, stunned. Adrian stood, turned to face them. War takes everything from us. Our friends, our innocence, sometimes our humanity, but we can choose what we do with what's left. We can let it destroy us, or we can try to build something better. He reached for Eliza's hand. I choose better. The room erupted in applause. It wasn't universal. Some people still looked skeptical, still wanted to believe the scandal, but the tide had turned, the truth was out, and it was louder than the lies. After the forum, Morrison pulled Adrian aside. Hartley's withdrawing the charges. His solicitor just sent word. Eliza sagged with relief. It's over? The criminal charges, yes. The tribunal will still proceed. Ashford insists on it, wants the official record cleared. But without Hartley pushing it, it's just formality now. Adrian looked like he might collapse. It's really over. Not quite, Morrison said, but you won. That's what matters. They left the officers' club to find a crowd waiting outside. Soldiers who'd served with Adrian, families who'd lost loved ones in the war, people who just wanted to shake his hand. One woman, elderly, bent with age, pushed through to Adrian. My son served under you, she said. He made it home because of your decision that day. Thank you. Adrian's eyes went bright. He took her hand, bowed over it. It was my honor to serve with him. She patted his cheek and walked away. More people came forward, more stories, more gratitude. By the time they made it back to the carriage, Adrian was shaking. Eliza held him while he fell apart. Not from grief this time, from relief. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it. Adrian kissed her, hard, desperate, grateful. When they broke apart, he was smiling, really smiling. Thank you, he said, for everything. We're partners, Eliza said. That's what partners do. They rode home through London streets, hands linked, watching the city pass by. The fight wasn't completely over. The tribunal would still happen. There would still be scrutiny, still be challenges. But they'd won the battle that mattered. They'd won the truth. And for the first time since their wedding, the future didn't look cold and empty. It looked like possibility. The tribunal convened on a Wednesday morning in mid-November. The War Office had set it up in one of their administrative buildings, a gray stone structure that smelled like old paper and military discipline. Eliza sat in the gallery with Morrison, watching Adrian take his place at the defendant's table. He looked calm, too calm, like he'd made peace with whatever verdict came down. Eliza hadn't. She'd spent the last week preparing for this moment, going over every document, every piece of testimony. She knew the case inside and out, knew they had the truth on their side. But tribunals didn't always care about truth. General Ashford presided, flanked by two other high-ranking officers. The room was closed to the public. Military proceedings were private. But Eliza had been granted special permission to attend as Adrian's wife. Hartley wasn't there. After his breakdown at the forum, he'd retreated from public view. His solicitor had sent a formal letter withdrawing all charges, but Ashford had insisted the tribunal proceed anyway. The military wanted its own investigation, its own verdict. The proceedings began with Ashford reading the charges. Conduct unbecoming an officer, criminal negligence resulting in death, dereliction of duty. Each word felt like a stone. Then the evidence presentation started. Morrison went first, laying out the tactical situation from that day 4 years ago. The maps, the troop positions, the enemy numbers, everything that had forced Adrian's hand. The tribunal listened without interruption. Next came Colonel Webb's written testimony. He couldn't attend in person, his health was failing, but his statement was clear and damning to Hartley's narrative. He described Adrian as one of the finest officers he'd served with, decisive under pressure, willing to make the hard calls. Then the three soldiers who'd agreed to testify took the stand. The first was a sergeant named Davies, grizzled, scarred, missing 2 fingers on his left hand. He'd been in the main force that day, not the rear guard. Captain Blackthorne held that position for 6 hours, Davies said, his voice rough. We were out of ammunition, out of options. If he hadn't called retreat when he did, we'd all be dead. Every last one of us. What about the rear guard? One of the tribunal officers asked. Volunteers, all of them. They knew what they were signing up for. Davies looked directly at Adrian. Including young Hartley. That boy had more guts than sense. He stepped up when the captain asked for volunteers. Didn't hesitate. Did Captain Blackthorne force anyone to stay behind? No, sir. He asked, and men answered. That's how it works in war. The second witness was a lieutenant named Graves. He'd been wounded that day, sent out with the first wave of evacuees. I owe my life to Captain Blackthorne, Graves said simply. He prioritized the wounded, got us out first. That's not the action of a negligent officer. The third witness was a private named Mills, young, barely 25 now, which meant he'd been even younger during the campaign. I was terrified that day, Mills admitted. We all were. But the captain, he stayed calm, gave clear orders, made sure everyone knew the plan. When he called for volunteers for the rear guard, I almost stepped forward. But I hesitated. Christopher Hartley didn't. He volunteered immediately. Why didn't you volunteer? Ashford asked. Mills's face colored. Because I was scared, sir, and Christopher was braver than me. Did Captain Blackthorne take advantage of that bravery? No, sir. He asked for volunteers. Christopher answered. That was Christopher's choice, not the captain's fault. The testimony went on for hours. By the time the witnesses finished, the picture was clear. Adrian had made the only viable decision in an impossible situation. The rear guard had volunteered. The retreat had saved lives. But the hardest part was still coming. Ashford called Adrian to testify. Eliza watched him stand, walk to the witness chair. He looked small suddenly, vulnerable. Captain Blackthorne, Ashford began, take us through your decision-making process that day. Adrian spoke clearly, methodically. He described the enemy positions, the dwindling supplies, the casualty reports coming in. He explained how he'd weighed the options, hold and likely lose everyone, or retreat and save most of the force. Why did you choose retreat? Ashford asked. Because 283 lives were worth more than my pride. You felt holding position would have been a point of pride? I felt it would have been suicide disguised as valor. One of the other tribunal officers leaned forward. Did you consider that the rear guard might not make it out? Yes. And you proceeded anyway? Yes. Why? Adrian's jaw tightened. Because in war you don't get perfect choices. You get terrible choices and catastrophic choices. I chose terrible. I'd make the same choice again. The officer's eyes narrowed. Even knowing 17 men would die? Even knowing that? Because the alternative was 300 dead. That sounds very calculated. It was calculated. That's what command is. Calculating losses. Making choices no one should have to make. The room was silent. Did you feel guilty? Ashford asked quietly. Adrian looked directly at him. Every single day since. Do you still feel guilty? Yes. Why? Because I sent 17 men to their deaths. Volunteers or not, that decision was mine. I carry it. But you don't consider yourself negligent? No, sir. I consider myself a soldier who made the best decision he could with the information he had. Ashford nodded slowly. Thank you, Captain. You may step down. Adrian returned to his seat. His hands were shaking. The tribunal conferred in low voices for what felt like hours. Eliza's heart was hammering so hard she could barely breathe. Finally, Ashford stood. This tribunal finds Captain Adrian Blackthorne not guilty of all charges. Eliza nearly sobbed with relief. Furthermore, Ashford continued, we find that Captain Blackthorne acted with extraordinary courage and sound tactical judgment in an impossible situation. His decision to call a tactical retreat saved 283 lives and is consistent with the highest standards of military conduct. Adrian's face was unreadable. The record will reflect this finding, Ashford said. This tribunal is adjourned. The gavel came down. It was over. Morrison grabbed Adrian in a fierce hug. Eliza pushed through the crowd to reach him, and when she did, she threw her arms around him and held on tight. You did it, she whispered. It's over. You're free. Adrian buried his face in her hair. His shoulders were shaking. I can't believe it, he said roughly. I can't believe it. You're cleared, officially. They said you acted with courage. They said, his voice broke, I thought they'd... I know, but they didn't. You won. They held each other while the room emptied around them. Morrison gave them space, stepping outside to handle the press that had undoubtedly gathered. When they finally pulled apart, Adrian's eyes were red. What happens now? He asked. Now we go home, Eliza said, and we start actually living. Home turned out to be Ravenswood. They left London the next day, neither of them interested in the social aftermath of the tribunal. Let the gossips talk. Let the papers print their stories. Adrian's name was cleared. That was all that mattered. The journey north was different this time. Adrian actually talked, pointing out landmarks, telling her stories about the estate. He seemed lighter, like someone had cut the ropes holding him down. Ravenswood looked different too, or maybe Eliza was just seeing it properly for the first time. The house wasn't cold anymore. It was beautiful, sprawling and gracious and full of possibility. The staff greeted them with smiles. Word had spread about the tribunal's verdict. Even the stoic housekeeper looked pleased. That first night back, Adrian found Eliza in the library. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Of course." He sat beside her on the sofa, hands clasped between his knees. "I've been thinking. About us." Eliza's stomach fluttered. "What about us?" "I want to do this properly. The marriage, I mean. Not as a contract or an arrangement, as an actual partnership. We're already partners." "I know, but I want more than that." He looked at her, eyes serious. "I want to court you, to know you properly, to build something real." Eliza's throat was tight. "I'd like that." "Even knowing I'm a disaster?" "Especially knowing that." Adrian smiled, full and genuine. "You're either very brave or very foolish." "Can't I be both?" He laughed. Then he kissed her, slow and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, Eliza rested her forehead against his. "I should tell you something." "What?" "I'm falling in love with you." Adrian went very still. "Eliza, you don't have to say it back. I just wanted you to know." "No, He pulled back to look at her. "I think I'm already there. In love with you, I mean. I just didn't realize it until now." Joy bloomed in Eliza's chest. "Really? Really? You're fierce and stubborn, and you don't let me wallow in my own misery. How could I not love you?" "That's the worst romantic declaration I've ever heard." "I'm out of practice." "Then we'll work on it." They spent the rest of the evening talking, really talking, about their childhoods, their fears, their hopes for the future, all the conversations they should have had before getting married. By the time they went to bed, together, in Adrian's rooms this time, Eliza felt like she knew him, actually knew him, and she loved what she saw. The next few weeks were a revelation. Adrian took her riding through Ravenswood's lands. They picnicked by the lake, walked through the forests, explored the estate together. He introduced her to the tenants, who welcomed her warmly, showed her the account books, asked her opinion on improvements. He treated her like an equal, a partner. And slowly the ice between them melted completely. One morning, Eliza woke to find Adrian already awake, watching her. "What?" she asked, self-conscious. "Nothing. I'm just—" He traced her cheekbone with his thumb. "I'm happy. I haven't been happy in so long, I'd forgotten what it felt like." Eliza's heart swelled. "I'm happy too." "Good, because I have something to ask you." "What?" Adrian sat up, suddenly nervous. "I know we're already married, but I want to do it again, properly. With vows, we actually mean. A ceremony that's about us, not politics or money or desperation." Eliza stared at him. "You want to remarry me?" "Yes." "Is that insane?" "Completely." "Is that a no?" "It's a yes, you idiot." Adrian grinned and kissed her. "We'll do it at Ravenswood. Small ceremony. Just people we actually care about." "When?" "Winter, in the chapel, with snow on the ground." "That's romantic." "I'm trying." "You're succeeding." They planned it together over the next month. Nothing elaborate, just a simple ceremony in Ravenswood's old chapel, with Morrison as Adrian's best man and Eliza's father giving her away again. The day arrived cold and clear. Snow had fallen overnight, blanketing the estate in white. The chapel was small and drafty, but they'd filled it with candles and evergreen boughs, and it looked magical. Eliza wore a new dress, cream silk, simpler than her first wedding gown, but infinitely more beautiful. Adrian wore his military uniform again, the one he'd finally made peace with. When she walked down the aisle, Adrian was crying. "You're supposed to wait until the vows," she whispered when she reached him. "I couldn't help it. You're beautiful." "So are you." The ceremony was short and sweet. They wrote their own vows this time, promises about partnership, honesty, choosing each other every day. When the officiant pronounced them married, Adrian kissed her like his life depended on it. The small gathering cheered. At the reception afterward, held in Ravenswood's great hall, Eliza's father pulled her aside. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "What you did for him, standing by him through all of that, it was extraordinary." "I love him," Eliza said simply. "That's what you do for people you love." "Your mother would have liked him." Eliza's eyes stung. "I think so too." Across the room, Adrian was talking to Morrison and Colonel Webb, who'd managed to travel north for the ceremony. He looked relaxed, happy, like a man who'd finally laid down a burden he'd been carrying too long. That night, in their shared bedroom, not the East Wing, not separate spaces, but truly shared, Adrian held her close. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For not giving up on me. For fighting when I couldn't. For loving me when I didn't deserve it." "You did deserve it. You just couldn't see it." Adrian kissed her temple. "I see it now." They made love slowly, tenderly, like they had all the time in the world. Because they did. Winter deepened around Ravenswood. Snow piled high against the windows. The fires burned warm. And inside the old estate, two people who'd started as strangers built a life together. It wasn't perfect. They argued sometimes about estate management, about politics, about Adrian's lingering tendency to shoulder guilt that wasn't his, but they worked through it together. One evening in late December, Eliza found Adrian in his study, going through old military papers. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Writing letters. To the families of the 17 men who didn't make it home." Eliza's chest ached. "Adrian, I should have done this years ago, told them how brave their sons were, how much their sacrifice meant." He looked up at her. "Is that foolish?" "No, it's exactly right." She helped him write them. 17 letters to 17 families, telling them the truth about that day, about the courage, the sacrifice, the impossible choices. They sent them out the day after Christmas. Some families wrote back, angry at first, then grudgingly accepting. A few even thanked him for finally telling them what really happened. One letter came from Christopher Hartley's mother. "Captain Blackthorne, my son James told me what happened at your forum, how Christopher volunteered, how you tried to save them all. I've spent 4 years hating you, believing my boy died because of your cowardice. I was wrong. Christopher was always brave, too brave sometimes. It doesn't surprise me that he stepped forward when others hesitated. That was who he was. I'm sorry for the pain my older son caused you. Grief makes monsters of us all. But I want you to know, I forgive you. And I hope someday you can forgive yourself. With gratitude, Margaret Hartley." Adrian cried when he read it. Eliza held him while he grieved properly for the first time in 4 years. "It's not your fault," she whispered. "It was never your fault." "I'm starting to believe that." "Good, because I need you to stop punishing yourself and start living." Adrian pulled back to look at her. "I am living. With you. That's more than I ever thought I'd have." "Then let's keep building on it." "What did you have in mind?" Eliza smiled. "Children, a real partnership in running the estate. Maybe opening Ravenswood to veterans who need a place to recover. Make something good from all this pain." Adrian's eyes widened. "You've been thinking about this." "I have. What do you think?" "I think you're brilliant and ambitious, and I love you more every day." "Is that a yes?" "It's an absolutely yes." They started small. In spring, they converted one of Ravenswood's unused wings into lodging for veterans, men who'd come home broken, who needed time and space to heal. Adrian worked with them personally, sharing his own struggles, helping them find their way back to themselves. Eliza managed the estate with a firm but compassionate hand. She modernized the accounts, improved conditions for the tenants, turned Ravenswood into something more than just a title, into a real home. By summer, she was pregnant. Adrian was terrified and overjoyed in equal measure. He fussed over her constantly, drove her half mad with his protectiveness. "I'm not made of glass," she told him one afternoon when he tried to stop her from climbing stairs. "I know, but you're carrying my child. Let me worry. I'd rather you trust me to know my own limits. Can I do both?" I suppose. Their daughter was born in October, on a day when the leaves were turning gold and the air smelled like harvest. She came into the world screaming, red-faced and furious. Adrian held her with shaking hands and cried. "She's perfect," he whispered. "She's loud," Eliza said, exhausted but smiling. That too. They named her Margaret, after Christopher Hartley's mother. A gesture of peace, of healing, of building something new from old wounds. When James Hartley heard about it, he sent a letter. "Your Grace, I heard about your daughter's name. I don't deserve the honor, but thank you. My mother would have been moved. I'm writing because I owe you an apology. A real one. I let my grief poison me. I turned Christopher's death into a weapon and used it to hurt you. That was wrong. I can't take back what I did, but I want you to know I'm trying to do better. I've left the military. I'm working with other veterans now, helping them adjust to civilian life, trying to make something good from all this. I hope you and your Duchess find happiness. You both deserve it. With sincere regret, James Hartley." Adrian showed the letter to Eliza. "Should I respond?" "Do you want to?" He thought about it. "Yes, I think I do." He wrote back. Not a long letter, just a short note acknowledging Hartley's apology and wishing him well. It wasn't forgiveness, not quite, but it was closure, and that was enough. Years passed. Margaret grew into a fierce little girl with her mother's stubbornness and her father's sense of justice. She ran wild through Ravenswood's grounds, collected injured animals, announced at age 5 that she was going to be a doctor. "Where did she get that idea?" Adrian asked. "From watching you help the veterans," Eliza said. "She sees you healing people. She wants to do the same. She's 5. She's determined. She gets that from you." "Absolutely." More children followed. A son named Thomas, who was quiet and thoughtful and loved books. Twin daughters who were chaos incarnate. Ravenswood filled with life and noise and joy. Adrian thrived in it. The haunted look that had defined him for so long faded. He smiled more, laughed more, lived more. One evening, when the children were finally asleep and the house was quiet, Eliza found him on the terrace, looking out over the estate. "What are you thinking?" she asked, slipping her hand into his. "About how different my life could have been, if you hadn't fought for me, if I'd let Hartley destroy me. But you didn't." "We didn't," Adrian corrected. All of this, it's because of you. It's because of both of us." Adrian turned to face her. "Do you ever regret it? Marrying me?" "Not for a single second." "Even at the beginning? When I was awful to you?" "Even then. Because I saw what you could become. And I was right." Adrian pulled her close, rested his chin on top of her head. "I love you. More than I thought it was possible to love someone. I love you too. Even when you're being overprotective and ridiculous." "I'm not ridiculous. You tried to stop me from lifting a teacup yesterday. You were pregnant. I'm not pregnant anymore. And I was fine. Still." Eliza laughed and kissed him. "You're impossible. You're stubborn. We're perfect for each other." "Yes, we are." They stood together on the terrace as the sun set over Ravenswood, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Below them, the estate stretched out, fields and forests, and the lives they'd built together. It had started with ice, with distance and desperation and a marriage neither of them wanted. But they'd turned it into something real, something warm, something worth fighting for. And as Adrian held his wife close, watching the sun sink below the horizon, he thought about the 17 men who hadn't made it home, about Christopher Hartley, who'd volunteered when others hesitated, about all the lives lost and saved. He'd never stopped carrying them. But he'd learned to carry them differently, not as stones around his neck, but as reasons to live well, to honor their sacrifice by building something beautiful from the ashes. "Thank you," he whispered. Eliza looked up at him. "For what?" "For showing me how to live again." "That's what love does." "Is it?" "When it's real, yes." Adrian smiled. "Then we have the realest love I've ever known." "Damn right we do." They went inside together, hand in hand, leaving the sunset behind them. The cold marriage had become a warm partnership. The ice had melted, and in its place something stronger had grown, something that would last.